Hello, this is just a quick primer, I guess like a mini guide. I wouldn't call it a full guide. There are some notes and stuff, but enough of a guide for what I'll be playing in the upcoming Crucible League, upcoming in, well, about just a few hours. Haven't had much time to get this out beforehand, but I don't see much good build guide content for the mode still, especially for its most meta builds like Boneshatter. So I thought I might just upload what I plan to do with the build, and yeah. What you just saw was a Guardian map, a lair of the Hydra. No deaths, done in pretty comfortable time, and that was with my character in the Ruthless with Gold event that I made, and only invested I'd say a couple of weeks of proper play into. I did have a lot of luck in what I was able to grab from trade, so even though I was only on a 4 link, I had plenty of DPS from having a good axe, which you'll see in this POV here. But again, a lot of that is just the power of live searching and seeing what you can grab from people when they are listing things for a lot lower than they should be. A lot of this guide is going to be in the context of softcore trade because that's what I enjoy playing the most. But you can adapt this to hardcore. This is a very hardcore viable build with maybe a few adjustments here and there. Standard stuff. You care a bit less about DPS and a bit more about not being bonked into the ground. But yeah, just want to go over the tree and some of the different choices you have with this build. For anyone who hasn't played Boneshatter before or heard about it, it's one of the most effective melee strike skills for both clear and single target, where you scale the damage partly by hitting yourself more and more. The faster you can attack with the skill, the more trauma you can gain, the more you hurt yourself. That's why we play a Juggernaut, especially with this node here. Untiring gives us a big heap of life regeneration from taking physical damage from those hits, which is going to, this at good trauma stack levels will outpace the value you get from, say, Slayer taking Overleech. Because it's passive, you get plenty of regen anyway, so you don't have to rely on hitting stuff in order to stay alive as well. You can just regen a lot of life back from things. As you probably saw in the Hydra kill, I could get chunked down to about just a few hundred health left and regen the rest quite quickly back up without a flask, which is very nice for keeping those 6 portals per map, not losing experience, and if you're playing hardcore, not losing your entire character. So, we play Jug also for a few things. One, it can scale its accuracy very comfortably off one node. We can take Precise Technique with this quite quickly and have a lot of damage compared to other characters in Ruthless. So this, being able to put this on plus Precise Technique is kind of the equivalent of getting a support gem or two going in the campaign. So when we don't have support gems and we can whack that on, that's a big bonus. Unstoppable is also fantastic for quality of life. Just cuts down on our travel time from A to B and makes sure nothing can stop us. Unbreakable is what I would take. You would see that down here it says no determination. Once we have determination, would strongly recommend we drop Unstoppable for Unbreakable. The amount of damage reduction you can get from the max res this build has, plus the armor applying to elemental damage, means freeze and chill is not nearly going to be enough of an issue to rely on this for immunity or to stress about getting it anywhere else, and you just get so much EHP versus elemental damage and physical from the body armor being doubled. But of course determination is extremely expensive at League start. It's the most important aspirational item for this build because Boneshatter really wants you to have as much armor as possible. That lets you just feel better about everything. But I have made a little no determination tree where we don't take what we need to take in order to get determination online, because we're going to be playing for a long time without it for sure. I'll show those differences in just a sec. To start this build, we're taking the life and armor stuff here. We don't take the physical damage. This is up here. Primarily because in Ruthless you can beat out Act 1 just fine by just stat checking things with your tankiness. As long as you can not die to things and regenerate your life, you're going to be able to kill Brutus, you're going to be able to kill Merveil. You don't need a crazy amount of damage from that, and this is just going to make us feel a lot more comfortable. And the second reason is regrets are extremely expensive. We're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of skill points if we want to take these 5 and then spec out of them later, because we want the armor and life. Even with all the extra life stuff, we're only hitting just a bit over 4k on this build, and we even reserve a bit, so it's not like we can afford to just take all this damage instead later on. So always path down here. You'll see a lot of this build. There aren't many good Boneshatter guys in general, honestly, and a lot of this build was derived from looking at the passive tree heat map you could see on PoE Ninja. If you just select the kind of league you're playing and then filter the characters for, like, okay, Juggernaut using Boneshatter, look at the heat map, you'll see a lot of trends. And that will also tell you what options people are taking and not taking, which is the most interesting thing about this tree. There's a lot of options. We're going to go over a few of those in a bit of detail. A lot of options to take. After we get this, we want to get the accuracy ASAP, so we can actually hit stuff. You still will miss sometimes in, like, the first few acts. It's okay. You know, this is like a more multiplier on damage when we can actually hit stuff more often. And after that, I would generally, this is the first option. Some people just path down here straight away and take this for the leech. The leech is nice. Leech node here gives you life leech, but I don't think we take this later on. I think kinetic is better because it reduces enemy stun threshold, which is just nicer for getting dealing with res. It gives us more stun duration, which is nice for a bit of extra defense from that. I haven't fully double checked all the math on this, and this is 1 less point to get the same mastery, so it's an option, but I see a lot of people taking this first. It's faster to get online. It's like from here it's like 1 2 3 4 5, this is 1 2 3 4, and then you can get the mastery, so you can get this faster. This mastery is one of the most important things to take early, just so we juice our damage against single target, so we can get roadblocked on bosses. Ignore the res stuff for later. There's no point taking max res when we don't have res to begin with. And this is our first big fork on the tree, and what I would generally do here is path straight down and take Wrecking Ball ASAP. This mastery is less important. I really like, you can take this for first and burn a regret later when you get intimidate somewhere else or lose interest in intimidating things. This is the best mastery we can take for 2-hand mastery. This gives us so much armor. I mean, my weapon, yeah, it does have 6 sockets. As soon as you can get 6 red sockets on your weapon, it's like 6,000. That's a lot. And that's without our determination setup. On the determination setup, it's giving us a total of like 7.7k. It's a lot. I would take it for builds, because this build cares about armor. Now once we're down here, we take this later. We can also take the this node here, Bastion Breaker. We can take the more masculine physical damage. This is just some good damage, because at this point, like, we should be tanky enough. We have vitality, we have some life, and as long as you're keeping your armor up to date, you're going to be comfy taking a lot of hits. So we should be comfy. We just want damage so we don't fail to kill Oak and such in Act 2. If you find a really good axe early, you can take the axe stuff, but you may want to hold off on taking the axe stuff, because if you find a really good mace after taking the axe stuff, you're going to look at it and cry. But the axe stuff is nice, it gives you rage on hit. That's quite nice. Oh! On the no determination tree, we don't need to take this either, really. Well, we can take this. You may want to take... Yeah, we can take this on the no determination tree. It gives us aura effect. It gives us pride. Pride is cheaper than, it's like much cheaper aura. Yeah, okay. Generally though, once I have this, what I usually do is we go right over here. This looks like the most point inefficient shit in the world, with how far we go without taking any extensional clusters. I mean, you take this along the way until you get like a mana leech ring, or you just keep it forever. If you don't want to get a mana leech ring, it's up to you. That's another option for this build. You do want mana leech though of some form, otherwise you will cry. So I don't take it because I have a mana leech ring in this build. I had one while I was playing in the Gold League. But what we really want to do is just zoom over so we can take precise technique by the time we've done lab. And again, you can take this live around the same time as well, but precise technique is the most important thing, because we're going to take undeniable first lab. It's going to give us all our accuracy we need and a good chunk of attack speed. And this is just going to give us 40% more attack damage. It's an insane multiplier on damage. The other option, of course, some people will run Resolute Technique. Resolute Technique means we can ignore accuracy altogether. I think this is silly, because we can just take Undeniable to fix our accuracy. I mean, you could not take Undeniable and take Unbreakable instead if you want to be mega tank, but then your damage is going to be terrible. And so is your quality of life, because you lose the attack speed, and the attack speed means we can't do things like run Consecrated Path as comfortably, or even stack as many trauma stacks. In general, I don't see the point ever not taking Undeniable on a Boneshatter Juggernaut. It's why you go Juggernaut, partly. Why are we over here? Okay, so we take a precise technique. There's some other stuff that's interesting around here. I mean, when you're increasing your life further, even with Undeniable, you're probably going to want to end up taking this at some point, and you can drop it later when you find accuracy on your gear. But this gives elemental res. It gives like 18% all res, which is really nice. Which reminds me, when you start starving for res, you may want to also take this. And again, this is stuff you can keep or drop later. You have a limited number of respec points, and there is something we need to care about with respec points. If we want to swap our ascendancy when we get determination to get the most value out of it, which I think is a very good idea, you need 10 for that. So you can build those up slowly as you play, but you get like 20 for free from the campaign. It's you get a decent amount. You can keep some of those back. So you really want to think about what am I taking that's temporary? What am I taking that's permanent? That's a really big thing in Ruthless, because this is 20% auras. This is why we never take a Lyra, by the way. I do have my bandit thing set up correct, right? Bandit quest couple, yes. A Lyra gives 50% auras. And mana and crit. The mana and crit we don't care about, so all she gives is 15% all res. This gives 20% for 2 points. So unless you want to stack this with a Lyra, which I wouldn't really recommend, you should be okay on res without it. But yeah, there's a lot of res we can get from the tree, which is going to make gearing into maps a lot easier. And the faster you can get gearing into maps, when I played Cold Dot Occultist in Sanctum Ruthless, I spent a while farming in like the Reliquary for gear so I could fix res. And that was time I spent not playing maps. And not playing maps is you're playing areas that are lower in tier. You can't drop maps as often from them. You can't progress your Atlas. You can't drop higher tier maps. XYZ. You can't trigger as many Atlas mechanics. It's just, it's better to get into maps as soon as possible. There's no shame in grinding for a while, but you want to get there. The transition is a lot more comfortable in this build, I'd say, than others, because we can get a lot of res from the tree. I mean, there's res here as well. 10% res here. We're going to want to take this, even without getting value from the max res. The amount of armor it gives is really nice. You can kind of notice when you start to actually hurt, when your Boneshatter is leveling up and you start to actually hurt yourself with it, that's when you want to think like, I need more armor from the tree. This is something to take early anyway, because it just gives you capped endurance charges, and honestly this node should do you solid for Boneshatter for a while. This does not have a pre-Boneshatter, post-Boneshatter tree. This build doesn't care about that, because we can basically start using Boneshatter as soon as we get it. because we're going to be using heavy strike for single target a bunch of the time, and Boneshatter is just a better heavy strike in a lot of cases, and at low level, it's not going to do much damage to us at all. I mean, we'll look at this in just one sec. Let's do this now. Boneshatter at level 20 is going to give us 200, almost 200 physical damage, or 194 physical damage per trauma when you gain trauma, which is going to add up to a lot. I mean, like 20 stacks, we're going to need to mitigate the fuck out of that. But you put that to level 1 into 6. 6 physical damage per trauma. So, even if you could gain 10 stacks, which is hard enough as it is when you have lower attack speed in Ruthless, that's 60 damage per hit on you, which is getting mitigated by your armor. It's a small hit. So you're barely taking any damage to begin with. So you don't have to worry nearly as much about things like the armor from these things. We want this for the endurance charges, though. It's very nice for that. Another thing to note about this build, it got buffed hard with the patch notes, the changes. Our new masteries are going to open up a lot of things for us. I'll go over those in a sec. After we take precise technique, that's when we just start taking the stuff around here, up here. We can, I usually take the axe stuff around this time because by that time I'm committed. Like, yeah, give me the axe stuff. We can take this a lot later when we actually have auras. Ignore this for now. It's worth it with Pride and War Banner. It gives the effect of non-curse auras is nice because it gives us more accuracy from War Banner as well and more damage from War Banner. Yeah, so. But there's life up here, there's life up here. Harpooner is just free. It's just free damage. It's a lot of damage. What is it, PB? It's 14% for 3 points. We don't go into a Pale much otherwise. You can run in Pale support. I wouldn't, because Impale damage doesn't contribute to stun. And one of the things I did die on this build a bunch before I got Determination was some kind of blue pack that just wanted to chew the crap out of me, that I couldn't stun and kill fast enough. Rares as well. Being able to stun rares is good for like quality of life survivability, so they can't beat the crap out of you. But this is a tanky build anyway. You're not going to encounter nearly as many problems as other builds do with trying to kill stuff. Around this area of the tree is where we see lots of the options. I mean, there's some over here as well. Let's go on the Determination variant for this. This is where I take this instead. We take more life up here. Take this, +1 max res, boom, boom, boom. Oh, a note on max res and these things. And so this is really nice here because it gives us lots of res and armor. I don't really care about the invasion unless we're taking this. If we find a good evasion and armor base, take, obviously. But this, we take this for this mastery. This is going to make us bleed immune. And this makes us corrupted blood immune. Now this is 2 points. It's a decent investment, but being fully bleed and corrupted blood immune means we can drop an entire flask suffix and just become shock immune, where we couldn't before, or ignite, or whatever you find is the best immunity to grab. I think shock is very good because it makes you less one-shottable from really stinky hits if people shock you. It's your choice what you want to take for max res here as well. Some people take lightning, some people take cold. I would take cold because it makes us even more resistant to chill when we don't have chill immunity. It's much more comfortable. But yeah, we take these masteries here. This is part of the buff I really like. I really like the idea of just being bleed immune. There's other stuff we can take here. The 5% more chance to evade melee attacks if we were an evasion build, by the way, is absolutely insane. Armor per endurance charge is going to give us 3,000 armor. It's not nothing, but it's not that much. Every 4 seconds regenerate. This gives us it's like 600 health over 4. It's not much. That doesn't matter. Increased armor if you haven't been hit recently is something as well, but only applies to 1 hit every 4 seconds, really. Bleed immunity. Very good. In terms of other masteries and options, you get another extra max res from this. One of the reasons why we want to take this even when we don't have Determination is for the new reservation mastery. It gives us max res if we have a life reserved instead of and mana. So we're going to reserve a low level precision. You can also do a vitality, but the precision's nice for the accuracy you gain from it. It makes us a bit easier to get our accuracy above our life, and it also means we can just level this up a bit if we want to trade a bit of life for accuracy if we ever dip below the precise technique threshold. If you notice your damage is suddenly become terrible after you take some life nodes, then yeah, that's probably because you've balked your precise technique balancing. The best mastery in the game for Ruthless, though. 15% increased max life. If there are no life modifiers on your body armor, this is insane. This is what is going to catapult the damage of this build on average across the player base of it, because this is going to mean you can get a 5-link so much easier. Standard thing before was you need life on your armor. It has a lot of potential for having a big chunk of life, and if you're on trade and you want to buy a good 5-link, you generally want one with life. If you don't have one with life, you're going to feel sad because you could have, you know, you got to have that toss up. Do I have my 4-link that has 100 life on it, or do I get this 5-link that has no life on it but some res and defense? This means we can get, for one passive point, it's 15% increased life. It's a lot. We can get life even when we don't have life on our body armor, so we can just invest in defense and res. It's very, very good. It also makes you know, if you're doing like shallow delving and finding lots of fossils, you can try fossil crafting a 5-link with like, I think there's fossils that give like no life modifiers but more defense modifiers. You can try to like get a really high armor base, because this is the hard thing about this build. And this is why this build, I killed Eater of Worlds Deathless on a 4-link. Why did I do it on a 4-link instead of trying to get a 5-link before attempting a pinnacle boss? It gets way too tricky. I threw loads of fusings at this because this has almost 2,000 armor and I wanted to keep it. This also had life on it. I just took it off for the purposes of this guy. I had life on this body armor on my character. Insane armor, really. It didn't have all the res as well. I don't think it had the. I think it had much of the res. This was different. It had the same amount of armor though. So I had a bunch of armor and a bit of res and a good amount of life on this as a 4-link. And I was trying to link it because trying to buy an equivalent armor piece that had at least like 2,000 armor, some res, some life as a 5-link, nightmare. Likewise, trying to get a 5-link weapon that has 626 DPS, no. So the hard thing about Boneshatter is your chest and your weapon are both, you want big stats on both of them. This is going to make it way easier to get those big stats on your body armor without having to worry about one of the stats that people often look for. It does kind of replace the 10% increased life mastery, but I never took that anyway because it reduces recovery, and the recovery, yeah, recovery is a quite big stat on this build, obviously because it's Boneshatter, so I didn't like that, so I didn't even take it. Other options for this build, because we can, again, you don't have to take this wheel. You can move this stuff around if you really want to, if it feels better for you. Depends what drops for you as well. Other options include this wheel here. You go on the PoE Ninja heat map, you won't see a crazy number of people take this. I prefer to run Fortify support. Where is it? Fortify support gives plenty. You can get more damage with melee physical damage on paper. Look, it's more damage, but this reduces attack speed. It's less attack speed, which is significant. It's really significant. I mean, look at the actual attack speed decrease we get from allocating it. So that decrease also means we're going to get less trauma stacks. So actually, this maths out as not nearly as much of a DPS loss compared to like melee furs. We don't want Impale. It just reduces the actual average hit damage, which is going to mess with our ability to stun stuff. I don't like that. Fortify. Fortify support, we don't take the wheel. So we get less fortification overall because you can get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you lose 3. So you get like 23 fortification, which is like an extra 3% less damage taken, which is nice, but it's like 5 points. Again, it's up to you, and you may want to take this for survivability if you haven't found a fortified support, but again, if you take it, you're kind of committed to it, unless you want to spend 5 regrets. You've got to balance your regret budget in Ruthless, unless you want to be quite unhappy farming for regrets later on. This mastery is insane as well, because we already get 50% increased armor while stationary, but we can increase this. This goes from 70% to 150% with this mastery. And we're going to be standing still quite a lot as Boneshatter, because we want to build trauma stacks and sustain them. This is not a build where we just keep going, bah, move, bah, move, bah. We want to just stand in front of the boss and stat check them and just wail on them as much as possible. Part of the reason I was able to kill Eater of Worlds Deathless on a 4-link is because I was tanky enough to survive his regular attacks. I could just stand there. And this is going to make it even easier to just stand there. And that's what you want. The defenses you'll need for something like Uber's a bit of a different kettle of fish. But if you're just looking to try to get your Void Stones without having to use carries, kill Eater and Exarch. I haven't tried normal Exarch on this build. I didn't have time before the event ended to get enough high-level maps to unlock him. But I can imagine it's quite similar, especially I have extra fire res. So yeah, you've got these life nodes you can take extra in. So this is a level 90 tree. That's not crazy aspirational. It's a Juggernaut with enough playtime. Oh, hang on, put that on auto. With enough playtime, you should be able to hit level 90 just fine. There's another armor mastery here. You can get a little bit extra. These aren't really worth it. This one is actually quite nice. Reduced extra damage from critical strikes. You can take this if you want. The impale masteries aren't worth it on this build. We're not really going to impale. This is just a bit of free extra chunk of damage that's better than most other chunks of damage you can get for a few points. I mean, you can get like, there's 2 points here you can get, which increases your stun duration and gives you a bit more attack speed. It's not bad, but it's nothing crazy. When we are using determination, or if you find another aura, like, I don't know, you want to use Purity of Elements. Purity of Elements ain't bad. Or capping your res, or stuff like that. You want to take this. And this is 4 points. But it does mean we get more increased effects of non-curse auras, which is like a 3% DPS increase, and gives us more accuracy from War Banner as well. I mean, how much accuracy does War Banner give? War Banner is giving us 20% increase, 21% increased accuracy rating. So we're going to take a bunch of War Effect and really increase that. It's quite nice. But you see, let me say the banner isn't planted. This is the this is the DPS in case like banner stages, banner planted. Here's one thing. We've just made it so if we don't have our banner planted and don't have the increased effect from it, we are no longer proccing precise technique. We probably have too much life. There we go. See how easy it is? This build is already quite close. You can't see the accuracy rating on this drop now, which is annoying. I'm going to take that life node off for now then. I mean, I'm just going to take this. Still level 19. I like round numbers. Yeah. So I'm averaging like 25 trauma stacks on this POB. I mean, if I take this off, that's also what they're at. Okay, cool. Maximum effect pride. I'm doing this around the idea that the banner is planted because the DPS we care about the most is our DPS against map bosses after we've completed a map. So you should have 50 stages of your banner coming in, drop your banner down, it should last the whole fight. And that's what you really want. We get a good chunk of damage from having it down, especially because we have Bannerman. Bannerman increases our attack damage when our banner is down. That's very useful for a bit of extra damage because we're going to be placing it anyway. The aura effect is also very useful. Yeah, I see some people not take this. I would always take this. It's very nice. Other things in the config while I'm over here and my ADHD is kicking in. I'm not taking frenzy charges, though you can probably have them while you're killing map bosses as long as they're like they don't have multiple phases. If they have ads, you're going to be easily able to use your frenzy charges while you're bossing. Not taking Onslaught again, but Onslaught is something you can again proc sometimes with bosses with ads, and it's also up bar mapping. You see our DPS is going up quite a lot, but this is also with our totems online. We are anointing Panopticon in this build, not taking it. It's quite a lot of points for that, plus like a mastery. Some of these masteries are kind of nice. Some are... I see some people take the buffs from active Ancestor Totems linger for 3 seconds. I don't think that's that valuable while mapping, because I'm generally only dropping my totems down to kill rares. I don't care about it as much for just charging into packs, though your mileage may vary, but it's a lot of points to go down there. It's opportunity cost, and you can anoint it. It's not that expensive to anoint. It costs an opalescent, but it's not something that needs like silvers or goldens, or you'll be able to get that. Before you can get that, just anoint something like, I don't know, Sentinel or something for res. Back to the config. Ticking that the enemy is close range. I mean, that also does that. Maimed. I'm not taking intimidate on this tree because I don't have actually a source for it right now. I mean, we'd have to take this or swap this mastery around. I mean, this might actually be more if I say Ruthless hits intimidate and then say enemies intimidated. It's about the same amount of damage, so meh. Yeah. So everything else on this tree is looking on this config is looking. I'm putting rage at 30 on an average for like your rage is going to ping pong because you're going to use berserk as well. By the way, berserk is not ticked. Very important because people will accuse me of being a PoE warrior. Where have I even put berserk on? There it is. It's not ticked. When I tick it, there's a lot of damage. It's a lot. And our EHP goes up as well. So yeah, that is the bulk of the tree and how we're doing things over here. Just check. It's quite tight aside from a few options. Really, there's a lot of stuff you just always want to take, which makes it a lot simpler for a mode like Ruthless. There's a lot less to worry about, I think, in terms of how do I get my damage, how do I get my defenses. You're a Juggernaut, just, become tanky, hit yourself, become tankier. The harder we hit ourselves, the more regen we get as well, so scaling DPS on this build scales defense, and effectively scaling defense in this build also scales our maximum available DPS. It's kind of funny. Let's look at our skill setup quickly. I have Ancestral Warchief on a multiple totem setup with Maim and Culling Strike, and Ancestral Protector in a separate somewhere on my body armor, which will probably be a 5-link, so that's fine. Culling Strike is nice for the Cull DPS, which doesn't get factored into our Boneshatter DPS, but it is basically Boneshatter DPS. It's overall DPS. And Maim gives us 10% increased physical damage on those enemies. Boneshatter is a 5-link. We have Ruthless, Brutality, Fortify, Close Combat. No melee fizz here because, again, it increases our attack speed. I don't prefer that. We can just scale more with more trauma stacks if we can. So I think this is the best available 5-link. I don't think it's worth going Impale. In our weapon, we have 6 sockets. I currently have Precision in this weapon, so I guess I should tick that it's 5. Not sure how you can move this around. You can probably move this around somehow. Oh yeah, you can put Ancestral Protector in the weapon and then just put Precision in the body armor. Oh no, but no, we can't. It has Arrogance. We have 2-link. Okay, we should probably change that quickly. Green. Oh, we lose 1,000 to... Look at that. We lose armor, but it's fine. So we put our... I'm just going to put our auras in our weapon. We don't have to worry about links. Auras plus Berserk. We run War Banner. We run Pride. It's a lot of more physical damage taken. And the important thing with Pride to remember is enemies will take 20% more physical damage if they've been next to you for 4 seconds. So you're going to do more burst damage to a boss. Let's say you come into the boss room with capped rage, you got 50 stacks on your banner, and your banner gives you adrenaline when you place it. It's best to hit the boss for a few seconds and then pop all your shit, because you're going to get 20% more damage out of Pride. We're going to look at that quickly. Minimum effect here, boom. Maximum effect, boom. It's a lot. Like, you should care about that. If you want to optimize your DPS versus map bosses, especially ones that can be somewhat rippier, it's worth doing. Precision and Arrogance here is quite nice. Gives us a bit of extra accuracy by having arrogance because it gives us increased aura effect, and that is what that will let us have the max res. So everything is at least 80% max res. Very nice. Currently, I'm thinking about running a cast for damage taken molten shell setup. I will probably try having it self-cast as well. I kind of recommend if you're playing hardcore, you want it self-cast, I think. In Ruthless, there's no reason why you should be going so fast in Ruthless of all things that you can't get much more value out of manually casting Molten Shell when your brain says, I might be about to die. It's just a lot more, the HP difference is insane, and I think you should care about that. Blood Rage on the cast when damage taken is not necessary at all, but you don't get that much more attack speed from having it level 20. I mean, it's something, it's not nothing. It's like 0.1 attacks per second. You can put it at level 7 and have it just auto proc, because this is going to automatically proc when we're hitting ourselves. When we take a total of 528 damage. So we will naturally proc this while we're clearing packs anyway, but that's also nice, which means instead of having it on left click, like some people would, and have it like automatically proc just while you move around, this means it will proc while I'm hitting things, so I'm in the fray. So that's the time when you want the extra EHP, so you can stand there for longer. I like that, and increased duration support if you can get it. Obviously, a lot of these supports are not something you're going to have early on. You can only really run your 2 totem setup once you have multiple totem support, obviously. And this is our. What do I have a socket in? Gloves, right? No, gloves, boots. This is in boots. I'm going to put this in boots. Boom. Yeah. So in our boots, we're putting Warlord's Mark for. We self-cast this for rage while we map. We just want to keep the rage. You just need to get to 50, and then you generally want to keep the rage. You just pop berserk if you're scared or you really think you need to kill something quickly, but otherwise it's usually worth just keeping 55 rage up a lot of the time. Berserk is a very good panic button. It gives you a lot of less damage taken. I mean, let's say we have berserk online plus molten shell. Where am I going? There we go. There's a lot. It's a lot of EHP. So we care about that. Ancestral Kai, put on left click. That's it's just nice to have the buff. The buff duration's about what, 5 seconds? It's just nice to have this up regularly because it gives you extra armor per 5 power. It gives you the extra melee strike range. It gives you the extra targets for your strikes. It just makes your clear a lot smoother. And it's kind of annoying to keep remembering to reapply it on another key. You're going to have some random downtime. We also self-cast vulnerability. If we're not casting Warlord's Mark on something, we'll cast vulnerability. Then things will die a lot faster. Boom. It's a lot of damage. High level vulnerability. We do need a bit of intelligence that we don't get from the tree to use it at that level, but it is worth it because lower level vulnerability doesn't have nearly as much of it. You see the damage drop off is quite fast. And of course, yeah, Ancestral Protection just on his own here chilling. He can go, yeah, he goes in body armor. And then we're quite tight on links because of that. While I was playing this in the gold event, I had 3 links because I wasn't running an optimal setup for a lot of the time. I didn't have like I didn't run Consecrated Path for a while before I realised how comfortable it was with the attack speed. I was running like Vengeance with like Rage support to get extra Rage versus single target, which was pretty jank. You can do that. If you drop a Rage support, it's not a bad support to put on, like, if you have supports for Boneshatter, you just put it on Vengeance and stuff. And Vengeance is not a bad thing to have anyway, but it's not that much damage. You don't actually scale the damage of it that much. It's more useful proccing for things like extra Rage if you want to. Let's quickly look at items. Again, this axe is very good, but I didn't get it for that much. I don't know what the trading economy is going to be like in Crucible, obviously, and getting something like this yourself on Solar Southbound will be very hard, but you can see that with a 400 DPS axe, we're still getting... God, it has so much more attack speed. We're still getting a a very decent amount of DPS. It's still like it's still mathing at over 1 million with this setup. So the axe is good, but it's not essential to enjoy the build. You can get a fine, comfy quality axe. Having accuracy rating on your axe is very nice. It's a very nice place to have it because you don't care about crit. So it's an economical way to use the suffixes you care about. Increased stun duration, also not a bad stat to have. Most of the gear I have just has life, res, and rarity and armor. Very basic. You can take spell suppression if you're going hybrid, but then you don't really have space for the rarity as easily. If you're taking that, you probably take this wheel over here with the Lucky Mastery. It's a good defensive layer. I didn't find it necessary myself much. I wasn't really ever dying to spell damage because your combined physical and elemental defenses, once you have Unbreakable online, is good enough. But if you want even more, of course, and if you want to do like very difficult bosses, you probably want that suppression as well. Consider that. My movement speed boots, quite nice. You notice these have the worst stats of everything, but they have 30% movement speed. The implicit on all of this stuff is nothing. I had some ichors and embers to burn, and I threw them on stuff and didn't get anything useful for your build. And you can, at the top end, get some really interesting stuff on your implicits if you just keep throwing them at your gear until you sit on something. But you only want to do that when you've found like a really comfortable piece like this. Like this is one of my favorite pieces I bought during Gold League. Good life, really big chunk of rarity, big chunk of accuracy. That's just everything you want. And this is the kind of piece I would throw Eldritch currency at until I get something really cool like +1 strike, or you can get like extra chance to impale or ataxia, all sorts of things, you know. Worth it. Rings, I would swear by getting 2 amethyst rings. You need chaos res, otherwise you're not going to have a good time trying to do Alva. You want to do Alva in general. This is Ruthless. Alva, even after the nerf, is probably going to be a very strong mechanic. And Chaos Res in general is just important for pushing high tier maps. A lot of the higher tier, like the tier 14s, eventually you're going to have to deal with a lot of chaos damage, and you're just going to get 6 portaled if you don't have a decent chunk. Which is why, again, my second favorite piece on this character was just this belt, which is like about 100 life, 100 life total, and Chaos Res. And that, like, instead of this, I could run like, you can run like a Belt of the Deceiver, which gives you some all res, and it gives you the intimidate, but it gives you less life, and I don't get the chaos res. And I don't like that. The chaos res is far too important, in my opinion. I don't have any flask ticked, by the way, for this build. I was running 2 life flasks, even with the regen I had, because I was a pansy. You can probably just run 1, but it's partly because I got the immunity to chill and freeze on this flask, which was nice, because it was nice I could save it for, like, if I did get frozen, I could heal up quickly and then become immune to freeze. This flask here can be, like, shock immunity rather than bleeding corrupted blood on this build now. And then I ran 2 Quicksilver flasks. Generally, you want to just alternate between the 2. You get decent extra chunk of movement speed from regularly applying those. This flask is insane. I probably won't be able to get one like this again. I ID'd it like that, and made a small whimpering noise as I saw that. And it's like, it's so much. It's like, look at the armor. Oh my god. But if you get any flask with like a large increased armor during effect mod like that, I would run it as long as it's usable. Like a quartz flask, I don't run one of those, but those are good. Those are still good. Basalt flask, maybe not, probably not a jade flask, but you know, that's the gear. And just to quickly go over the notes I've left here, I don't really feel like adding that much more because this isn't a general guide to how to play Ruthless. This is just more like a primer for what you're doing with this build. General rewards, you want to keep Heavy Strike until you have Boneshatter. It's more damage than using Ground Slam. Some people are already probably complaining that I'd saying, yeah, just use Ground Slam. You can mule splitting steel, but I don't think it's going to be that worth it. You don't use ground slam for that long until you get Sunder. It's just, you know, you're not even using it against bosses. You're just using it for clear as you go. It has a better chance for stunning stuff than splitting steel, which makes it easier for you to keep enemies at bay and from overwhelming you early. It's decent damage. I don't really care. You know, once you have Sunder, you just play Sunder. take Vitality, we take Ancestral Protector, we take Ancestral Cry. We don't really use it until we have like Call to Arms, whatever. But it's still good. You take it, otherwise you're gonna have to mule it or buy it off someone. Either option is pretty bad for such a easy to acquire gem. There's no other better options. Like, don't take Seismic Cry for Sunder like I did the first time I played this build. It's a very bad idea. You can take War Chief here because there's no better options, even though you can't really use it properly. It's more upfront damage than Ancestral Protector, but Ancestral Protector lets you get higher trauma stacks, so you can try to math it out if you want to. We have to use our gemstone to get Boneshatter. We get Berserk here, Blood Rage from second gemstone, so we get Frenzies while we're mapping, because we spend most of our time mapping, and it's nice to have Frenzies. Third gemstone, now we get Vulnerability, because you can't get it. It's the toss-up for Vulnerability is you have to get it instead of, what is it? Oh, Warlord's Mark. I don't have Warlord's Mark here. Where's that? Where's my I'll edit this later. Wherever you get Warlord's Mark, you pick up Warlord's Mark. I haven't put that in here because my brain is quite tired. You need Warlord's Mark first, not Vulnerability. Vulnerability you get as the third gemstone. Warlord's Mark you get as the Crucible, because Warlord's Mark gives you maximum rage. You just throw it on normal enemies as you go. Ascendancy Order, you take Undeniable first, unless you don't want to do damage. I would then take Unstoppable, because Untiring still doesn't give us value. We need Untiring, but it's the last thing we need for this build to function. Unstoppable just lets us get to maps faster, which is better. And I've left a note here, after Termination, you want to probably swap that for Unbreakable. You'll lose some movement speed, but you will gain so much survivability, and Consecrated Path as a skill more than makes up for the fact we can't walk as fast. It's fine. It's fine. A note here, when you can swap to Boneshatter, it's quite quick and fast, you don't have to worry about much. And yeah, it's about Consecrated Path. So yeah, this is what I will be playing for the Crucible League, probably as my only character. I'm usually a one character Andy, though it's a great build for farming up stuff for another character. It's fast, it's tanky, you can get higher levels, push higher level content. You can do deeper delving with this, you can get some of that cool, crazy stuff that other people might not be able to have from later bosses and such, because this build can do bosses pretty well. If you have any questions, any thoughts, or point out anything I'm doing that you think is dumb, please leave a thingy in the comments, comment in the thingy below.